Hi guys. Just a quick kind of fill-in really before the interview I had with Keiran Maguire, Price of Football. Unfortunately, StreamYard failed me, and the volume disappeared a bit of way through, and well, so I've edited it. I've put as much information on the film as possible, and this is what he said. Definitely good points brought up concerning both Arsenal takeover and the Cardiff City finances. So there you go.
Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to Football Brownie. Hope you're well, keeping safe, keeping each other safe, and spreading the love during this pandemic, because we all need a little bit of loving. Before I go any further, check the ticket banner below. Please like, share, subscribe. Football Brownie on Twitter. That's my Twitter handle, my Facebook page, and the Instagram. It gives me absolute pleasure to introduce my new guest, the author of football, the Price of Football, Liverpool University lecturer, expert football finance, none other than Keiran Maguire. Many thanks, Kieran, for coming on. Much appreciated.
Thanks very much for the invite. Looking forward to this.
We do have a little link, Kieran. My ex-girlfriend is also Russian. So, because I know. So, I've heard about your experiences in Moscow many times, and it's made me chuckle.
Somehow I'm still alive. I still don't know how I ever managed to get through stories which could never be told. Certainly not to an audience of nice people.
No problem. I fully understand where you're coming from there. I fully understand where you're coming from. I asked you to come on, Kieran, because it's two clubs in which I'd like to focus on. One, my own, being Cardiff City, and the other one, Arsenal. If we can start with Arsenal, really, I find it fascinating because, first of all, I really do enjoy, listening to your insight and your expertise on your podcast, the Price of Football podcast. I really find it fascinating that this so-called takeover, how much in the public domain it's going, and I'm just wondering, what exactly would the valuation of Arsenal be? Even with COVID, but even pre-COVID, what type of figures are we really looking at there?
Well, we did a valuation at the university last year in respect of Arsenal, and we did one when Stan Kroenke bought out Farhad Moshiri and Alisher Usmanov a few years ago, and we valued the club then at around about 1.83 billion, which was actually the price that Kroenke used to buy out Usmanov. So I guess that's a start point. To a certain extent, I think you've got to disregard COVID, because when you are trying to value any business, ultimately it's what is the business going to do in the future. Yeah. So I think we're all operating in our head, and whether this, we're fingers crossed this will be the case. It's on the basis of a full stadium. So, for Arsenal, that's £100 million a year. And then you've got to say, well, realistically, what should Arsenal be doing? Well, they should be qualifying for the Champions League at least 5 years out of 10. So you would put that into a model, and that would give you the figures that we have seen bandied about of around about the 1.8 to £2 billion mark. Is that enough to persuade Stan Kroenke to sell? I'm not sure. And should we be using Twitter as a means of trying to buy a well-known company? This is where I start to feel a bit uncomfortable, because in my experience, things are best done behind closed doors. And once you try to use social media as a vehicle to try to push through a transaction, it smacks of, to a certain extent, of publicity seeking, and also trying to put pressure on Kroenke. Kroenke's stubborn. He's based thousands of miles away, so it's not as if he's going to have Arsenal fans knocking on the door of his ranch to try to persuade him to sell.
Yeah.
So that's the element that I felt. Is this only a semi-serious offer? It's all very well getting the former players involved, but they're not going to be putting their hands in their pockets with regards to this. They are very much front of house. What's happening behind the scenes is more intriguing. So the one thing I've learned from, and I'm just a teacher, I'm not an expert, I am just a teacher, but never say never in football. But if you take a look at the acquisition of Chelsea by Abramovich and Manchester City by Sheikh Mansour, the first thing we heard about those deals was when they went through. And sometimes that's the best way to conduct negotiations.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I completely agree. It does smack of publicity seeking. With regarding, is there more and more loans going against the club at Arsenal? Because I'm hearing a lot of rumours that the loan notes going against the club as time has gone on. Is that the case, or?
Not particularly. I mean, I've got Arsenal's figures here on a spreadsheet in front of me, and they owed this is just pre-COVID. They owed £200 million in debts, but they had 100 million in their bank account. So the net position wasn't brilliant, but it's certainly there's far bigger debts involved. Clearly, the club has also borrowed money from the Bank of England, which my understanding was due for repayment relatively recently, and I don't think they've necessarily rolled that over. So I think the intriguing question is, how has Arsenal managed to repay the COVID loan to the Bank of England? And I guess that this is where potentially Stan Kroenke could have used some of his own wealth to provide funding for the club. But I don't see the debts of Arsenal. They wouldn't put anybody off. If you've got debts of 200 million and you're looking at a business which is worth the thick end of 2 billion, it's the equivalent of a 10% mortgage. When you're borrowing 10% of the value of the property. So
as long as you can service the debt, you're fine, really, aren't you?
Yeah.
Cardiff City, my beloved Cardiff City. Jeez. And we had some ups and downs over the years with certain owners, and I wanted your opinion, really, Kieran, because the fan base seems to be split at the moment on whether or not you believe the current CEO, Mehmet Dauman, or not, with some of his comments coming out. One of them was that owner Vincent Tan is ploughing in 3 million a month, I think, there's always people who would not believe a single word that comes out of a CEO's mouth, and there's people who are giving him a bit of leeway. Is that, even though it is COVID, is that possible that Vincent Tan could be putting in such that amount every single month?
I think potentially that could be the case. If we take a look at Cardiff's accounts over the last decade, they've had 2 years in the Premier League. In that period, they have had the receipt of parachute payments, but in general, when they have been in the Championship, for every £100 of income they've generated, they've been spending 101 on wages. So the club's been losing money, as soon as they paid the wage bill. So that takes into consideration, they've got to fund transfers, they've got to fund overheads. There's potential interest cost on some borrowings as well. You then add in the COVID factor, and there is no doubt, and again, I've got a spreadsheet in front of me, that the club has needed some form of funding. It has been quite volatile on a year-to-year basis, but there has certainly been periods where the owners have put significant sums into the club. So I wouldn't rule it out. I think it would probably benefit all concerned if the club put out their accounts for 2020 just to show the impact that relegation had that season and the impact that COVID was starting to have. But I don't think the claims are outlandish in terms of the owner having to put in seven figure sums each month.
Okay, and because of COVID, you confirmed yesterday to me that the accounts, companies are given a further period now. It's not like normal where it would be April. They're given a further period to the end of May for the accounts to be published. That's correct, yeah?
That's right. Cardiff's accounts, I think if I remember correctly, they're normally dated the 31st of May. And under normal circumstances, from a legal point of view, from a Companies Act point of view, you've got 9 months in which to submit them to the authorities, to the now, Rishi Sunak said as part of COVID adjustments, he was going to extend that to 12 months. So in theory, Cardiff have got until the 31st of May 2021. But we have seen other clubs just completely ignore the rules, with Derby County being the most spectacular example. They've produced nothing since 2018. But I'm sure that Cardiff won't go down that route because, no disrespect to Derby, they haven't exactly covered themselves in glory reputationally in terms of some of their activities in the last few years.
Yeah. And did I hear you mention as well that this character Alonso, who was apparently going to be buying Derby, but he actually did inquire with Cardiff as well.
Yes, for people not familiar with the story, Eric Alonso is a 29-year-old former boxer. He has got a couple of degrees in various business matters, and he was working for Delphine Chansiri in Sheffield Wednesday. That relationship broke down in January and he left under a bit of a cloud. Nobody's quite sure why. He then came on the scene a few weeks ago saying that he'd agreed a deal to acquire Derby County. He also claimed that he had been significantly interested in acquiring Cardiff City. But the Cardiff chairman said, well, we may have had a phone call, but we just thought of him as a tyre kicker because...
So there you have it. Lots of information for you to digress. Many thanks to Kieran for his time and support for the channel. I'll also put a link in the description for his book, The Price of Football, and his Twitter handle as well, because it really is fascinating if you are like me and like to take note of what goes on off the pitch as well, what goes on the pitch. Many thanks and